This project came about just kind of for me tinkering around with the Patreon stuff for Bellwitch. It seemed like very much of that. Like it's kind of like it's one entity, like something just kind of split off to the side, and it's like it's of the same root system, so to say, but it's kind of going in a different path all of a sudden, and it's been split off.
What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at GhostCultMag.com. I am super stoked to be joined by Dylan Desmond today. You know him best from Bellwitch. He's got a new project to talk about. Dylan, how you doing?
Doing great, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. As I said offline, humongous fan. We have been lucky to cover Bellwitch, I think, from the beginning from the beginning of our publication, going on 12 years. So, like I said, covered you all over the world. Personally, got to see you at Roadburn. I won't tell the story about how I fell through a hole in the floor at that road burn. They're not using that venue anymore. But anyway,
Oh,
uh, yeah, it was funny. There was like a hole in it was in the hangar where they used to have the
yeah.
shows, and there was like a gap in the floor, and they covered it with a mat. And everybody kept falling in the mat, like step on the mat to take a photo and fall right to the floor. I'm
That's like a
sorry.
trick from like a medieval like movie or something like
I
that. Like
yeah,
just throw a mat over it, we'll catch everyone.
I was like, I came to Roadburn and I got injured. Mad love to all of Roadburn. I love. We were formed basically to cover Roadburn and things like All Tomorrow's parties and Fun Fest and stuff like that. So love Roadburn. That's like one of our home, our tent pole things we always cover. And I had a wonderful time there, except like smashing my face and my legs, and my camera. But
Oh no.
anyway. So you have a new project that I am terrified to try. I'm gonna say Je Est Un Autre. I hope that's right. It's probably bad.
I think Je Est Un Autre.
Je Est Un Autre. That's it. Sorry, everybody that's French and assorted French dialects. I'm so
Uh,
sorry.
My
But
pronunciation's probably wrong or off too.
well, so basically, ostensibly, it's a solo project for you, and the body of work of Bellwitch. If that's all you ever did, you'd be smile proudly at the end of your career with that work. But this is a really terrific project. I really enjoy this. It's definitely different. It's you, so it sounds a little bit like what you do, but it also has completely different flavors and moods to Bellwitch. And I really enjoyed this record. I really have really dug in and listened to it a lot. And I have many questions. But what was the impetus? You guys have been working tirelessly during the rest of the world was kind of shut down, and you made music. So what was the genesis of this project first and foremost?
Sure, sure. Well, so like during the pandemic when everyone was on lockdown, we started doing a Patreon channel that was like every month we would do basically we were demoing stuff for the Clandestine Game and Future Shadow trilogy. We were demoing sections of that, and we were just kind of pairing the sections that we recorded to like classic films, like 5 to 10 minute chunks. And the idea was that there would be kind of like I don't know how many. I think everyone's probably tried to match Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz. That nature of things like it's probably not intentional, but there's some really fucking cool happy accidents in there. So the idea was to kind of like try to make some of that happen. And just organically in that process, I started noticing like, oh, when I'm in the program that I'm doing this in, if I kind of move this track over just a little bit, all of a sudden, this thing that the character is doing in the film, this thing that they're doing matches up perfectly with this little line that the music does. And it almost like it intensifies both the visual aspect and the auditory aspect. And there's this like kind of heightened, elevated sensation and on all fronts. So then I kind of started changing my approach to those videos and trying to write songs to the film. I'm like writing a proper soundtrack. And in that, I found that the bass, I was using the bass first and foremost, but after a while, it was like synthesizers would actually kind of work like it would kind of glue stuff together a little bit more. And I had synthesizers that I kind of just had for fun. And that aspect of it just grew exponentially over, as it's been a couple years now, like almost 3 years now that I've been doing that. Yeah, and like sometime in there, I was like, I think I like finished a video and I was like, oh, but I've got this other idea and I really want to record it. And I recorded it. And it was like, that's fucking cool. Like I should just I should do this more. This is fun. I love this. So yeah. The project kind of came out of that idea right there. It sort of just naturally split off from what the Bellwitch Patreon's doing.
Killer. Thanks for unpacking all that and talking about Pink Floyd and scoring and composing and films. You're hitting
Everything.
me right where I live.
Right on.
Right in the wheel, right in the fields, and right in my whole life story. In fact, I was saying offline how I covered Roadburn. We've always covered Roadburn Ghost Cult the whole way, but I personally covered Roadburn in 2018, and after I left Tilburg and I went to Amsterdam, I like got ripped at a hash bar and saw a double header of Zabriskie Point and Obscured by Clouds. So this music has that vibe. Like
Fuck yeah.
it is like completely that vibe, like a score to an unseen film. And again, the whole aesthetic of Bell Witch has always been these live performances with these beautiful creative film stuffs, we'll call them for lack of a better word, right now behind you. And so yeah, I imagine this would be amazing to see performed live. It does feel, I know there's a concept behind it, and we'll get into that in a second, but yeah, I really dig just the whole expression here, and I agree. I kind of find myself agreeing with you about the synths. I figured you naturally go and pick up a bass and compose, but since tell their own epic tales, right?
Yeah, and sometimes they make a foundation that is really nice for a bass to sit on. Like we do that with Bellwitch all the time, where it's like, this part needs something, and it's kind of like Jesse on the drums will be doing synthesizers also with the foot pedals. And like all of a sudden, like a part that's kind of like, this part's like okay, like I don't know if it's good enough. It'd be like, okay, let's toy around with the synthesizers a little bit, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this part's fucking awesome, like it's perfect, and it just makes everything pop. It like adds this it like fills out the I don't know. Sometimes you got a sandwich with just bread. You got to put something in the middle.
Well said, well said. I get it. And then again, like there's a really lovely job by the PR team providing us with the information, but I could not possibly explain this and do it justice. So I wanted to ask you to just, if you're comfortable sharing the overarching concept of this record. It was kind of spelled out for us, but I want you to, if you can, explain it and simplify it for our viewers and listeners.
Sure, sure. So like the album name Flatworm Mysticism is kind of playing off the idea. So with flatworms, I think all types of flatworms, maybe just some types. Like say there's, say you're a flatworm and you're out, worming around like you do when you're a flatworm, and something falls out of a tree and it just cuts you in half. Scary world out there. Both halves of that flatworm all of a sudden can just kind of become two separate entities. It's not like the brain is on one side and whatever gets cut off dies and the side with the brain can maybe survive. Both sides can individually kind of go their own way and operate as two different entities, two different flatworms all of a sudden. However, they have a shared, they came from the same spot. So they're essentially still this, it's the same DNA for the most part. So it's kind of like still the same creature, kind of, but it's two completely separate creatures that are then experiencing, the world in two different ways, and they're going to react in different ways. And I kind of felt like I don't know the mysticism aspect to that. Like if you apply mysticism to the idea of two things having the exact same source but continuing on in a different fashion. I mean, I think the there's endless interpretation that one could take from that. But I felt like the way that this project came about, just kind of for me tinkering around with the Patreon stuff for Bellwitch, it seemed like very much of that. Like it's kind of like it's one entity, and not that something fell out of a tree and cut it in half necessarily, but like something just kind of split off to the side, and it's like it's of the same root system, so to say. It's of the same source, but it's kind of going in a different path all of a sudden, and it's been split off, which is also similar to what we've been doing with the Stygian Bow material, in a lot of ways. And I don't know, I think just with there's two examples. It's kind of like, oh, we've got these little projects that are kind of just weird split offs of Bellwitch, which is, I mean, on my end, I think it's fun. I think it's great. So I don't know. I guess the flatworm mysticism idea was kind of already, or maybe just the flatworm idea was floating around, and yeah, it seemed like the perfect title for how the project had come about.
Right on. I thank you for helping me with a future segue with mentioning the aerial ruin split. But
Yeah.
I wish I was smart enough to remember my junior high school biology class where we talked about it was like the two pillar biologists, one guy who did the study of flowers and crossbreeding flowers, and the other guy who was like the flatworm guy. I wish I could remember that stuff, but I'm way too fried.
I wonder who was more fun at a party, the flower guy or the worm guy.
Oh, surely the flower guy, because people immediately associate flat worms kind of gross people out
Sure,
sometimes, and flowers make people amorous and think about sex. So
sure, yeah, sure, sure,
pollinating and stuff, crossbreeding
sure,
and pollinating.
sure.
But yeah, obviously there's a deep philosophical angle to this. I don't know if it was, like you said, so many directions you could take that and interpret it. And I know it's all you historically leave things up to the listener to interpret. I wonder if there's, sort of a cause and effect, what people will come back to you after they hear this and say it. Obviously, we can't know now, but I don't know if you've shared this with other people or any other journalists have come to you and been like, here's what I get out of it. Because I think it'll be interesting to see what people take away from it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that's like the most fun part in so many ways. Maybe the most fun part is making it, but like it's so much fun to hear like the different ways that people take it in and the way it is. And I haven't really heard it. I don't think many people have really heard it yet. There's the one track online, but beyond that, I don't think many people have really heard it at all. A handful of like buddies that I've sent it to have probably, and you heard it obviously, and I'm sure there's some other people through the PR team that have listened. But yeah, I'm really excited to hear how it comes in. I mean, it's so cool hearing that stuff because sometimes people like most people would talk to me about Bellwitch because we've been doing that for so much longer. So over the years I've heard that from people and it's great. And a lot of a lot of them are of the same thing, like everyone's kind of like coming from the same space when they're listening to it, but sometimes it's different and it's great. I mean, it's like I don't know, you watch a movie. Sometimes, two people watch the same movie. At the end of it, one of them's like, "So this was about this sort of thing. That was the underlying theme." And the other person's like, "Whoa!" Like my girlfriend and I have this conversation all the time. She's like, "Oh, this was happening." And I'm like, "Whoa, I didn't catch that." And then it's like, "Whoa, now everything's different," and I want to watch it again, and or some variation of that. So yeah, I'm excited to hear how people take it in.
Nice. Yeah, people are gonna obviously come away with it with their own thing. I definitely got my, like I said, all up in my feelings, and
Oh, right on.
definitely
Yeah.
attracted to the philosophy angle of what I'm getting from it, and yeah, I'm really excited. It's a pretty killer piece. I always feel like whatever you're attached to is very workmanlike and unassuming. The Big Bell Witch release last year, kind of a surprise drop, basically, maybe by design. But again, I feel like a single eked out on this, not using your name, not a lot of fanfare, just like very. I go to work and I make art, and I love that about the process, and I love that about your work.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. It's yeah, I mean, yeah, that feels cool to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like I think to a certain, for we'll say the avant-garde section of music, which I have a long association with as a critic and a reviewer. I think there's always a risk of pretentiousness, right?
Sure.
I come from, like I said, I love Pink Floyd. I come from '70s progressive rock as a little kid. I wore a lot of like makeshift capes as a child, just so
Nice,
you
nice.
know, and a lot of knitting needles as magic wands.
Sure.
And some of those bands, they were mocked back then, and now Rush was picked on, like bullied mercilessly
Sure.
by
Sure.
everybody, that these guys are not going to make it. There's no way they're going to ever make it and be
Yeah.
successful. And then 2112 smacks the whole world on its ass. But even before that, so I always find it, it's interesting. Like we live in an environment now. There's so much music, and there's so much. The availability of music is awesome. I would like everybody to get paid more, but the availability and the sort of this appreciation now of progressive music and avant-garde music is much more, I think, than when I was growing up, for sure. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think that I mean, I guess like modern technology is helpful in that regard because things are so much more accessible. You know, you can just get on the internet and hear the wildest shit you can imagine. And in some ways, I mean, I guess there's a another side to that coin, which is that when everything's so accessible, maybe the some of the what's special about things can feel diluted or like when it's really easy to find something online, maybe we don't have to appreciate it as much. I definitely am guilty of that in so many ways. I would like to be better about that. And I think that that's I mean, especially in underground heavy metal, there's this sense amongst all of us we want to find that obscure band that no one's ever heard of before that's really fucking good. And I mean, I think it kind of falls in line with that same thing. Like everything's so accessible that the some of the mystery goes away. And so mystery is fucking crucial, man. Like we all need that shit in every aspect of our life. But I think in artistic ways, of course, it's paramount. And I'm on a tangent here. I'm losing track of what the question was.
Perfectly good tangent. I asked your opinion if you feel like we're in a more
Ah,
access. It's not just the accessibility of music, but because of that, maybe we're in a more understanding, open-minded time for underground music, avant-garde music,
sure,
progressive music, for
sure.
what we like. Do you feel like it's an easier go now than maybe like our forebearers, 30,
Sure, yeah,
40
I
years
think it
ago?
is easier. Yeah, and I think that like you said, everyone does should be getting paid more, but I think that's maybe more possible now than it has been before. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for times that I haven't experienced, but I would guess that nobody was making too much money making weird avant-garde music in like the 80s. Maybe they were, I have no idea. Or in the 90s for that matter. But I think that the fact that there are so many ways for it independent artists to get things out there. Like this record, for example, I just recorded this right here, like in my little office. I wrote the whole thing sitting right here in this exact same chair. That's pretty cool to be able to do all of that and then be having this conversation in the exact same chair, with all the same shit around me. I don't, that's because of technology and because of because there's other people doing it because it's so accessible. Other people see it and they're like, I want to try that. That looks cool. That looks fulfilling. I want to do that. Then they go and do it, and maybe they do it fucking cooler. Maybe they do it whatever, different. And then someone else wants to try it, and it's like with the exposure also comes the just the natural expansion, like almost from within the culture, from like all of us kind of work on the same idea, and it's sort of spread out. Ooh, there's a flatworm mysticism thing in there somehow. Flatworm, maybe I don't know.
There it
My,
is.
my coffee's getting the better of me here.
Oh, I hear you. I'm on like 3 coffees and very little sleep. So this is how I do. This is how I do. And
Right
then
on.
I'm gonna try to go see Green Jelly tonight in San
Oh,
Francisco.
that'll be
So
that'll be great.
yeah, like it's right around the corner and it's only 2 bands. So it's like if I feel like I'm flagging, I can bail.
It's cool they're still doing that, man. I mean, they had like songs
Yeah,
on the radio in like the mid 90s.
earlier, yeah. Before Tool got big, Danny Carey was playing drums with them. So
Yeah.
91, 92, and that's how like Maynard got onto the Little Pig song and all of that. But anyway, I'm not the Green Jelly biographer. But I will say, you mentioned earlier about Stygian Bow and Aerial Ruin, and I know that that's a part one, and it's 4 years ago now. I imagine part one means someday we will get a part two. I know you don't want to ever dilute what Bellwitch is or your other art and music, what it is, but obviously, greedily as a fan, please, sir, I would like some more.
Sure. I've the past couple weeks I've been down in Portland working with Eric Mogridge of Aerial Ruin on the new Stygian Bow material, and we've got a lot, and it's not it's coming out pretty good, and we it's not far from like it's at the point where it's like okay, we need Jesse to start adding the drums. Like we've got the structures now. Let's add flesh to the bone. Let's spread it out, give it more. So yeah, it's coming along great. And I hopefully we can get into the studio before the year's up. There's so many like Bellwitch is on tour for like 2 months straight starting next month. And then I've got a school thing for like a month in the summer. And then there's some other potential Bellwitch things in the works. But hopefully within all of those things, I think we can make it work out.
Right on. I appreciate that. I know there's that other part two and part three are hanging out there for the Bell Witch trilogy, which is so exciting. I feel like whatever you guys do next, we'll all be waiting for it. In terms of the money, I do feel like there are a certain level of artists that riches may not be for everybody, but it's nice to go on Bandcamp and see like the whole, a lot of Bellwitch vinyl is sold out. I'm really happy to see that for you guys. I hope it, makes it worthwhile. I know for you to go overseas is very expensive right now for bands to come over here and bands to go over there. But I always feel like the band does very well in Europe from my experience covering you guys and other people on our team covering in other cities. So I wish you the best out there with that. As usual, I like to close these out with a quick wildcard question, and I can't resist. You have a giant, huge stack of shelves of books right behind you,
Ah,
so
yeah.
I'm going to ask the book question, which is, what are your three books you can't live without?
That's a good question. Let's see. I think Moby Dick, just because it's, the epic battle between good and evil, life and death, human versus nature, consciousness versus unconscious, et cetera, et cetera. Just the duality. I love that shit. That I the first time when I read that, I took a college course on that in, I don't know, when I was a kid. And I think I like went into the course kind of like probably hungover, probably stoned, just not quite knowing what I was getting into, just kind of like, oh, I have a class, okay. I remember just the first day, the teacher was just digging in, and it was like, whoa, I had no idea Moby Dick was this fucking cool. And yeah, that stuck with me. I fucking love that book. I think another one would be, sticking with American literature, Native Son by Richard Wright, which is like there's this there's book I just read called Determined. I can't remember the author's name, Richard something, and it's how about how there's no such thing as free will, about how we're all kind of uh we're all sort of puppets of our past, maybe of our genetics, maybe of our upbringing, our the culture we were born into, et cetera, et cetera, and that our actions, he think he's a neurobiologist, so he's arguing that like our actions are actually the way we're going to react is based off of chemicals and hormones that are happening based off of past experiences. So we're kind of all just acting off of the past. So in a sense, we're not acting off of free will, we're acting off of something that happened before. And I think that in Native Son, that is a fictional account of that exact same thing. Like the character, damn, what's his name? The main character is murders some people, and he's being tried for it. And every the jury, they're just like, this guy's, we're gonna put him to death. Like, what a monster! He's a murderer. And this lawyer comes in and he's like, hold on, it's not his fault. Like, he killed these people, yes, but the whole world was against him. He had no choice but to kill. And it just poses this idea of it's almost like already determined. It's like maybe it's not his fault. It's a fucking great story, and I think that the value in that is that anyone who reads it has to think and be like, whoa, who am I mad at? Just in like a very personal way. Like maybe not this huge grandiose societal scale thing, like get into socioeconomics and race and all those things, but just as an individual, say like, who am I mad at in my life? Why am I mad at them? Did they really have a choice in doing this thing that I'm so mad at them about? And it I don't know, it's humbling. I think it's a big lesson in empathy that we could all use. That's a great book. And third, oh, I don't know. I want to say something by Hannah Arendt, or maybe it's on the top three. The third one's tough. I just read a book, Paul Celan, who's a Romanian German by way of Romania, a guy who survived some of the concentration camps during World War II, set up by Germany, by the Nazis, that is. And he made this, he's a poet, and the poems that he was writing, part of the idea is that he's writing them in German. And a lot of people were kind of asking him, they're like, hey, like the people that this language is from put you in a concentration camp and killed your whole family. Like maybe, he spoke like 10 languages fluent. He would like translate all these languages. People are like, have you thought about maybe like why not choose French or Romanian or Polish, etc. And he was like, he has this quote that Germany is the master of death or something to that effect. I'm butchering it, but it was this idea that he's sort of confronting this sort of dark archetype, this sort of evil, and in its language making this really wild cryptic poetry that's like, I don't think you could read one of his poems and say, oh, there's a deep meaning here, because there's not necessarily a meaning. It's more about this like raw emotion, raw human expression, raw feelings, I guess. About, I mean, I don't know what you even say it's about something. It's just like this, it's this mirror of humanity from someone who's experienced a very vile corner of it. Uh and it's fucking beautiful. Like these poems that this guy writes, it's just like it's fucking mind-blowing. And so sometimes he'll smack it's in German. So the translations I've read have been in English. 'Cause I'm not fluent in German. So things have shifted there. But in the English translation, there's these words that are smashed together, and it's kind of like that's nonsensical. It doesn't make any sense. But my brain, I think anyone tries to interpret it as they will through their own set of experiences, and it takes on this whatever it is. If it's a meaning, I don't know. If it's a feeling, whatever it is, it takes that on, and it's incredibly it's just fucking magical. Like I don't know what other word to put for it. And yeah, it's fucking humbling to think that we can do that with something that has no meaning in the way that, like an instruction manual has a meaning. It tells you how to do something, how to put together a whatever. I'm really on a tangent now.
No, that's good though. Great answers. Not always the easy one, but I appreciate you stepping up. And those are some great suggestions. I'm a big Richard Wright fan. Dylan, thank you so much for sharing everything with us
Thank
today and
you.
unpacking all this stuff. I am so excited for this record. Please, best of luck and be safe out on the road. And we look forward to more music from you in the future on top of this project.
Right on. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.